the question both of us have been puzzling over for a while is, why is it that companies struggle so much with getting this balance right between doing whatever it is they're doing today, which they have to do because that's what earns all the money for their collective enterprises, and doing what they need to do to ensure the future. And one of your, I think, ahas, this is a book, it's a few years old by now, it's called Zone to Win, but you really talk about the perverse incentives that are in place in bits of the organization that are designed to do different things. So I thought maybe just give people an overview of that core idea.
Yeah, I mean, the idea, this was done with the team at Microsoft under Satya Nadella and the team at Salesforce with Mark Benioff. So two world-class teams. I mean, this is not, we weren't dealing with the injured, right? We were dealing with pretty pro athletes. But what you see is there are these zones of operation inside of any large corporation, which have their own operating model. And for that zone, that operating model is designed for success, and it works really well. But there are 4 different zones, and each zone has a different operating model. And the operating model that creates success in that zone creates failure in the other 3. And when you sort of parse it out that way, people say, they kind of get it. But the problem is when we come into our meeting, we bring our own zone's operating model with us, and all our muscle memory instincts are to use our metrics and our approach. And so what was happening was the following things. Because the performance zone made the money this quarter, they were kind of the top dog. And their belief was, if you just paid people for performance, every one of these zones would work better. You should use our model. You should pay HR people on hiring performance, and you should pay finance people on finance performance. And so that was their model. And then the productivity zone, we call it the productivity zone, which is all the shared services behind the scenes. They have a process model. We run finance with a process. We run IT with a process. We run HR with a process. If these guys in the performance zone would just follow the process, we'd be fine, right? And so both of them were doing that stuff. And then the incubation zone was the third zone. And the incubation zone, the performance zone looked at it and went, well, there's no money there. Why don't you give me that money? I'll add more headcount. So why are you even spending money there? But if you have to manage it, give it to the productivity zone. They'll manage the incubation zone. So the productivity zone says, sure, we can do that. We have a process model. So they bring the process model out to manage the incubation zone. Well, you and I have been around venture capital for 40 years. There is a great operating model for managing, developing disruptive innovations. It's called the venture capital operating model, not their financial model, their operating model. It's great. Milestone-based funding, entrepreneurial, small business units, bing, 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 bing. That was not the productivity zone said, no, we want to have an ideation event, then we want to have this funnel, and then we'll have stage gates, and we'll work. It'll be very democratic. It'll be wonderful. And so, and then the fourth zone, which is the transformation zone, which is the only zone that's not populated all the time. In fact, ideally, it's populated infrequently. But that's when you really have to change dramatic gear. And the thing that was there that was hard was the CEO would say, well, I've got 2 or 3 ways or horses to ride here because the world is changing. We have to adapt, but I don't know which one to pick. So I'm going to run all 3 of them, and whichever one wins, that's the one we'll follow. And it turns out that a transformation can be only one way, the highway. This is what Steve Jobs said. There's only one thing we do at Apple. You just got to get that thing all the way across the tipping point. So the point was 4 different models. None of them are like, I've never heard of that before. But all of them need their own sequestered respect, and the zones have to respect each other, and we weren't really doing that.